We're heading to Kroger today to see if we can make 5 meals for $5. I went ahead and got some of this wild rice roni, which was on sale. Kroger has some excellent sales. I also got this stir fry noodle kit, which doesn't have any flavoring, but it does have the noodles and the vegetables, and it has a good amount of servings in it for a decent amount of a serving size. I also got this deal over here that was a $3 pack of this kielbasa meat. I'm going to be using half of it though, so I'm going to go ahead and use $1.50 worth of it. I also got some garlic, which will only need about 1/4 of a head to make all of our meals. And I also got one of these sweet potatoes. I found the smallest one I could find. I also got one of these red onions. We're going to be using about 1/3 of it. So there's our onion, our stir fry, our sweet potato, half of the kielbasa, 1/3 or 1/4 of the garlic, and that pack of rice-a-roni. And that's all of our ingredients we got for $5. I'm also going to be using a little bit of margarine. You can use a fat of your choice, salt and pepper for free. And if you didn't know, you can keep growing your green onions in a little bottle or a little cup with a little bit of water in it, and you can have green onions for pretty much forever. I went ahead and started making up my rice-a-roni. I used the wild rice with the chicken flavor, but you really could use any of the ones that you like. I put 1.5 cups of water in it, a tablespoon of the margarine, and then I took that packet of seasoning mix and only used a tablespoon of it. I'm going to use the rest of it to season some of our other items in the meal. So in order to substitute the little bit of seasoning that I took out of it, I put in 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Now I'm seeing what we have in that bag of stir fry, and you can see Sasha over in the corner sitting on her bed just observing as I cook these meals. I went ahead and poured out all of the vegetables and noodles. I took a cup of broccoli out of it, a tablespoon of green pepper and of red pepper, and 1/8 of a cup, which is 2 tablespoons of the carrots. First up is stir-fried noodles and veggies. I went ahead and melted a teaspoon of butter or margarine in the pan, added 2 tablespoons of sliced onions, a teaspoon of minced garlic, 1/3 cup of I cut them into matchsticks, kielbasa, and I went ahead and sauteed all of this till it had a little bit of color on it. I added a cup of our stir-fried veggie noodle mixture and a teaspoon of that seasoning blend from the wild rice into this and just stirred it around. I added a little bit of cut up onion on top, the green onion, and you can see that our complete meal is right here. This isn't the largest meal on the menu today, but it is satisfying and it's got a good amount of vegetable and carbohydrates in it and should keep us pretty satisfied for this day. Next, I went ahead and made kielbasa and broccoli. This one, I took a teaspoon of the margarine, added another teaspoon of minced garlic into the pan, let that get a little bit of color on it, added in a tablespoon of our cut up onions. I just cut them into little cubes, and I sliced up part of the kielbasa and stuck that into the pan to get a little bit of color on it. Now the kielbasa, I went ahead and cut it into 5 different sections right before creating these meals. That way I had the right amount for each meal and we didn't run out of meat for any of the meals. I then added in 1/2 cup of cut up sweet potatoes. I steamed them for about a minute in the microwave just to help quicken things up. I added in my cup of broccoli and a teaspoon of that seasoning, and then you can also add a little bit of salt and pepper to your taste. Here I served it alongside 1/2 cup of that wild rice, and this was a delicious meal. I love broccoli and I love kielbasa, so it worked out quite well, and that sweet potato works well in this dish as well. Now, of course, you could leave out the kielbasa and make all these meals vegetarian, and this is one that would be really easy to do that with. We're making a noodle stir fry over rice. I made 2 octopuses with the kielbasa that we planned on using for this meal. You just cut it in half, slice little strips down, but not all the way through to the top. And then as you're cooking, it spreads out like that and makes them look like little octopus. Or octopi. I looked this up in the previous videos and I've already forgotten what it is. I added in a cup of that veggie stir fry with noodles blend and a teaspoon of the seasoning into the noodles. and then I served it over a cup of the wild rice. And this is our finished meal. To make this meal vegetarian, leave out the kielbasa, and instead of the rice-a-roni with chicken and wild rice, use the cheddar and broccoli one. Next up is kielbasa and sweet potato. We're gonna go ahead, take a tablespoon or a teaspoon of the margarine. You really just need enough to coat the pan. A teaspoon of your minced garlic. Then I cut our little kielbasa into strips, not quite matchsticks, but little wedges. And I did cut our sweet potato into matchsticks as well. I used a half a cup of the sweet potato. I also used a tablespoon of sliced up onion and a teaspoon of our seasoning blend from the rice. As I was saying, we had plenty of onion. I added 2 more tablespoons worth of that red onion at the end just to add a little extra crunch. I like a little bit of the crispness from the onion in the dish. I served it on top of a bed of a cup of that wild rice and some of those green onions on top for a little pop of color. Next, we're making this garlic pepper fried rice. I melted about a teaspoon of the margarine into the bottom of my skillet and added 1/4 of a cup of cut up onions into the skillet. I added a tablespoon of garlic. Yes, I know that's a lot of garlic, so if you don't want to use that much garlic, you can use a little bit less. I like things pretty garlicky, and I was trying to use everything up, so that's what I ended up doing. Then I added a teaspoon of the seasoning blend, 1/4 of a cup of cubed kielbasa, a cup of the wild rice, and a tablespoon of green pepper, a tablespoon of the red pepper, and 2 tablespoons or a heaping tablespoon of the sliced carrots. Those were all from that stir fry blend, the noodle stir fry blend. I just mixed it up until everything started getting a little bit of color and the onions had cooked to my desired softness, and then topped it with some of that green onion. And here's our last meal. We got 5 meals for $5. Kroger ended up being a fairly good deal. I did have to use partial ingredients instead of the whole thing, but I'm pretty satisfied. Let me know in the comments what you would like to see next, and thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. We just recently reached 3,000 subscribers and I couldn't thank you all enough. Until next time, happy cooking!